Yolande and Nikk, welcome to Soul2Soul. Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to hear more about your company called Inspire Tribe. Would you like to tell us about Inspire Tribe, what it's all about?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Well, we started Inspire Tribe about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We do mindset mentoring and business coaching, so it's a bit of personal and business style coaching.
Right.
And we look to work with people's strategies and patterns that they use and that they're usually not consciously aware of, so unconscious strategies and patterns that they use to run their lives.
Right.
So
That's quite deep there, right? So what got you into doing this? Obviously, this is not just something you walk into. It's something you've obviously thought deeply about before getting involved in.
Yeah. Well, years and years ago, I saw a coach. I was living interstate and I came across a coach and I didn't really know what coaches did, and I worked with her for about 18 months to 2 years and fell in love with the idea of having someone to challenge the way that you think on a consistent basis and take your focus from here over to here when you would not normally be able to do that on your own.
Right.
So I'd experienced it firsthand years ago, and my father was always just in my ear talking to me about, think about it like this and what about this, and sort of always, chanting little things to me. And you?
my story's a little similar but different. I've read personal development for about 20 years and had a business with my sister, and found that I sort of capped. The business was doing quite well, but capped, and I wasn't that passionate about it, but I didn't know how to shift it and change it or either take the business to the next level. And after reading personal development for 20 years, I got a coach. It was a business coach, but she took business coaching to from a whole different angle. And my whole life shifted. What I'd read all of a sudden became I could apply it, and it was within 6 months. I was like, okay, I've read enough of it. I want to be able to do what you do as quickly and as well as you do it, and sort of switched courses. So my business now, the other business, the finance business, is run by my sister. I got myself out of that business pretty quickly when I worked out what coaching could be, and we started Inspire Tribe.
So your prior business was a financial-based business?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
right, that's quite
numbers,
different, isn't
So I have
it?
an engineering background,
Right.
and then finance, but personal development all the way through. Like, how do we think? What makes someone more successful than someone else? And once I saw how powerful coaching could be at actually making all of that information applicable on a day-to-day basis, it's a bit of for me, a no-brainer. Like, it's an absolute passion. I think about it 24/7.
Now, does that business background help you in what you're doing now? Does that translate into what you're doing now in some way?
Any background in business helps another business, I think, because you learn through trial and error with business. There's no silver bullet in business, and I guess it took me 10 years to work that out. I was looking for what's the thing that I need to know to make my business successful. And I guess I did find that the silver bullet is passion. So I'm very good and highly skillful when it comes to numbers and finance, but I just love personal development.
Right. So how long's Inspire Tribe been going now?
About three
Yeah,
years.
almost 3 years.
Almost as long as our show.
Yeah. So we've been working together for about that time. But I had gotten into coaching prior to this business starting. So sort of to loop back to the question you asked before, I just sort of got to a point in my life and the work that I was doing, because I had small children at home, and I'm thinking, now what am I going to do? And I never really knew it at the time, but everything I'd done in the last sort of 15, 20 years career-wise now just seemed to all add up and sort of funnel into coaching. So I started up a little business just doing life coaching work with women and empowering women, and because that's exactly where I was at that point.
Yeah.
So that was kicking along for a couple of years, and then we met, and Nick's passion about starting Inspire Tribe with her business background and all my my personal coaching, and I'd been in just jobs all to do with people and training and corporate training and hospitality and all of that. We then just went, this would be a really good fit
Very
together.
natural fit.
So it seems to me you guys are really interested in how people tick.
Oh,
Would that be correct?
we are.
yes,
statement?
we are fascinated by it.
And I guess how they tick, and also how to shift the way they tick so it makes them feel better and more successful. But more successful just leads to people feeling better.
So generally speaking, what type of people come to you at the moment?
Yeah, so all sorts of people come. We mainly work with highly logical people.
Right.
Because not that they don't know why they come to us initially, but they come from a logic-based perspective, I suppose, and they say, look, I want to feel happier, or I want to see better results in my business, or perhaps I want a better relationship with my partner, or something like that. So there's those people, and maybe you can elaborate on that. But then there's other people that just go, okay, I am here, I'm at point A in my life, and I want to get here to point B. But often they don't know what the point B is, but they know they want to be different from point A. So we assist them to get very clear on point B, and then guide them through this journey. But you can probably speak more from the logical.
When you talk logical accountants, anyone who's in sort of a process sort of driven things, senior management in corporates or anyone in corporate who's sort of heading up the ranks. We tend to work very well with that style of person because we have clear processes on how people think and why they think the way they do and where they get stuck. So logical people just love seeing, okay, that's now I understand why I am the way I am, and now I have an idea of how I can change myself.
Yes.
And yeah, as I say, they sort of thrive on. It's almost like, for me, and this is why we coach this, I was highly logical, but felt capped and sort of unconscious hooks, we call them, that sort of I felt held back. So when we sit in front of people like that, we can articulate how they feel without them even knowing that they feel that way. Right. So when it comes to coaching, it's the way people speak and the language that they use. Yeah. So you can hear in people's language, we call the language leaky. People say what they really think and feel in their language without realising what they're saying.
Yes.
So we listen carefully for that, and we can help people understand how they're thinking and feeling, and just put that back into a way where they go, wow, like, how do you know that?
So it makes sense for them.
I know in a previous conversation we had, you said that you tend to get a lot of men coming through.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, which is a real flip from where I first started coaching. Men started coming, I think, because they almost come under the understanding of, okay, I want to come and get coaching to assist my business. So that sort of brings them in initially, but we take a very different
challenging, confronting.
Style, I suppose, than straight business coaching. So I think they like that we're two women, and both strong, confident women that can. So because often we'll have a client and they'll work with both of us. So perhaps one the majority, and then the other one will come in to do a few sessions. So they love the balance of the two of us, and we can articulate things for men from a female perspective, so they understand their wives and their daughters and everyone, the females in their life a lot better. But then we can also articulate it from a male perspective because we've been...
More masculine perspective.
Well, yes, sorry, more masculine perspective than a male perspective, you're right. So again, that just gives them language, and what Nikk was saying before, awareness is the first thing. So once people have awareness, and then they need to learn the language so they can articulate how they're thinking and how they're feeling to then move through it. And we seem to do that very well with men. So the men keep coming.
Do you find that people are usually at a point of crisis by the time they get to you? Because people usually don't do something until they're at a difficult point.
Yeah, it can be a trigger, so it can be a crisis. For example, some people that are referred, like come via referral, are more likely to have heard that someone's shifted in their life and there's such a big significant shift in the way that person's acting, and they look a lot happier, that another person will go, oh my goodness, I want what you have. So there's that person who they're sick of the way they've been. So I guess that's a sort of crisis. But we also have people who just want to go ahead further, faster, more quickly. So they're very distinct types of people. People who have felt held back and people who are at a block and don't know where to go. So there's...
Yeah, and it's probably more those people. They're searching for something, but they're not quite sure what it is. And because often we hear people articulate to us, I was just feeling that something was missing, but I didn't know. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Yep. And then I heard about you guys, or someone referred me, or we've met them somewhere, and they're like, oh. And then once they understand how their thinking can be shifted, they then go, oh wow, okay, well maybe it is me. Maybe I need to shift. And we're like, yes. So
now, do you get a lot of resistance in that process?
Well, it depends on how people have come. So people are coming and looking for the change. they're like, no resistance there.
Correct. No.
But in corporate, so if someone's, it's been suggested to them that they go and see a coach or a mindset mentor, the resistance can be quite significant to start with. But it only takes a session to have that person show them where they could be.
Yep.
And what they could have. And as I say, through listening to their language, we can quickly pick what might be missing in their lives. And you only have to articulate someone's what they don't say to other people
Yes.
for them to go, okay, if you can actually label that for me, I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
and then they buy into the process.
So I'm guessing that with each client you have, your techniques or what you bring to the table would change as to what's required of each person.
Yes. So there's a certain framework that we work within. We use different models that we've learnt in the past, and also our own IP that we've developed over the years. So we do work within a certain framework, but everyone is different.
Yeah.
So and we have different styles as well. So sometimes, I can be quite, exaggerated in metaphors, or I'll get them up and do physical stuff with them if that's what's needed. And then other times it's just a very quiet, heart-based, really open, quiet session that's very moving for someone, because that's what they need. So we've
the
got to
structure-
constantly be...
The structure is constant of the way we shift people, etc. But I guess the furnishings and the rapport, how we choose to build that, is very individualistic.
Right.
Yeah. Obviously, when we're in a team environment, you work with all the different members at once, so that's different again. Yeah.
Yes.
So it varies.
So let's go back in time a little bit to a time where you both decided, oh, this is a good idea, let's do this. You're coming from different worlds, different experiences. How did you find a way of merging all that together? I'm quite fascinated by that.
Yeah. Well, from the coaching, even though Nikk is much more widely read than I am, and had read personal development for years, whereas I suppose was just speaking it and
More intuitive.
yeah, perhaps initially, although that's probably shifted now, but initially it was probably more the case. So the way it started, Nikk would just talk to me about her business experience and just teach me little things as far as setting up our coaching business was concerned, and just mindset around business, which assisted me enormously. And with the coaching, we would coach each other, and I would go and coach someone, and then I would talk to her, and she would say, okay, so what was the initial issue that the client had, and how did you do it, and what was the result? So because we've both studied NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, we very much believe in intuitive modelling. So Nikk thought, okay, you're already a good coach, how can I intuitively model from the coaching perspective? So I trained Nikk up in coaching very quickly, because then we would role play, we would coach each other, we would discuss at a high level what was going on in each session, and then she's done that back to me from a business perspective very much. So.
If we go back even before the start, though, or if I go back to in my engineering days, when I studied engineering, mechanical engineering, is 1 in 10 people were women. Yeah, so it was highly male dominated, and I found I was good at numbers, which is why I did engineering, but when I actually went through the course, I wasn't that interested in it. But I thought engineering's a good degree to lock and load,
Yes.
so I'll make sure I finish it. But what I would do is I would do the course and look around and go, okay, whatever subject it is, what skills can I bring to it, and who do I need around me that's going to be way better than me at what we need to do to get the assignment done. But it happened to such an extent that in the third year I realised, really, I'm just getting the most intelligent guys and making their work presented really well. And I went to one of my tutors and said, I'm not sure that I'm really learning how to be an engineer here. Like, I'm getting great marks, but I'm just picking the right people.
Yeah.
He's like, it's a very good skill to learn. So I was like, good. Okay, so, and that's pretty much how Inspired Tribe came about, because when I first met Yolande and saw her ability to coach, and when she coached me, I'm a bit of a challenge to coach, and she built the rapport and guided me so strongly and so well. I was like, okay, that's a good fit there, and she's quite expansive in the way she thinks, so I'm very grounded, whereas Yolande's the opposite to that. So I was a bit like, we need to go into business together. And she's like, oh, I've got my own thing going. I'm like, yeah, we'll do a lot better together than we will do separately. So was a bit persistent there, and it didn't take long to actually decide to work together. And it's worked extraordinarily well. Mind you, it was challenging in the early days because we do come from things at such a different perspective. But we're 3 years in now. It's quite smooth these days.
Well, it's obviously doing well for you if you're still going after 3
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it's just getting it together so it wasn't hard work, because obviously we have business together and a relationship as well. So it's doing both is, I think, one of the most challenging things. That
Now, I should ask,
you can
relationship came before business or business before relationship?
Relationship.
Yes, just.
Yeah, but it all sort of happened very much at the same time.
Yeah.
We met where we studied coaching, and so part of the course that we were doing and studying together involved us coaching each other. So we did a whole day of coaching. So when Nikk was talking before about how I coach her, it was so it all sort of
Yeah. So.
Fused and blended.
It is,
That's
it
right.
is.
So, what are the challenges of being in a relationship and working together at the same time? Obviously, that's takes a few checks and balances there.
Yeah. Well, for me,
I think I do it more easily.
I had slightly more challenges, I think. For me, it was the being on for business and then being off and having a personal life. Whereas Nikk, as she was saying earlier, she eats, breathes and sleeps what we do 24/7, just loves it. So for her, there's not okay, well, work's finished, now we can just go into home life. Whereas I quite like that. So at the start, it was, we'd be eating dinner and she'd be still talking about, I'm like, no, enough, like I'm done. I just want to spend time with the children and just talk about what we're doing on the weekend. And so it was just resetting boundaries and aligning what was important for both of us there. That was probably one of the biggest ones. And then also, when your business partner is your personal partner, if I'm like, I really don't feel like doing any work today, she'd go, oh, okay, or no, you do. And I wanted her to say, oh, why don't you just stay in bed today? Or, so there was. But again, it was just a boundary of what's appropriate and what's not. But just learning to live within those parameters, I suppose.
Yeah. And look, there's positives and negatives in that. So for me, learning how to turn off is a good thing. I'm very good at clocking out of the office, but I don't turn off in my thinking.
Right.
It's not hard work though. It's fun.
Play. Yeah.
And is it a constantly developing situation? Like, are you always having to monitor that to make sure you don't fall back into old habits or that sort of thing?
No, it's constantly evolving, is what I would say. So it's and that's my whole belief, is life can get better and better and better. So it's never, well, for some people it's I want to be here, and once I'm there, that's enough. Whereas I think I used to strive to be at a particular point and go, then I'll feel good. And when I got to that point, I was like, well, I still want to keep moving, but I don't have the need to keep moving. It's more play based these days. So yeah, it's just
and because we're constantly working with our clients to, okay, well, what is it that you want, and what is it that's going to make you happy, and then once you have that, then how is that going to be sustainable?
Yes.
We're insanely passionate about living what we speak. Yeah. So for us, as far as working well together and having a good relationship and all of that, it's just this constant. Well, what is it that we want, and how are we going? I mean, only the other day you were saying, the way the business is and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, are you living your ideal average day every day? And I'm like, it's pretty close to it. And Nick's like, well, we just need to have another conversation about it. Is it ideal? And if it's not, what do we need to tweak? So we're constantly having those conversations.
Because some people almost become afraid to ask the question, don't they?
Oh.
They're sort of like, let's not spoil a good thing or whatever,
Yeah, if it ain't broke,
well,
don't fix it.
So the thing with that is,
Exactly.
the good thing never gets any better. So there are some, I sort of call them minefields actually. So people get into a relationship and they think, I won't go onto that topic because that's a hard topic, and she always gets upset. Whereas I'm like, well, okay, she got upset last time, so how should I tackle that topic next time so that it's another space of freedom. So we just
Yeah.
keep going across
Yeah.
difficult ground to make more and more free space. So when you start out in a relationship, it's all free space, and then you work out can't go there, can't go there,
Yeah.
can't go there.
Yeah.
And we found all those spots, and I was like, okay, let's go and blow up all those minefields so we get more freedom, and then let's expand the paddock.
Yeah.
And if you expand the paddock, you're going to find more minefields.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely,
Yeah. So a mentor of ours said that the quality of her life was determined by the size of the problems that she could solve. And I just think it's such a beautiful way to think about life.
Yes.
Because life is never problem free. And it's learning how to get over the little problems and do those effortlessly so you can tackle bigger and better problems.
It's quite often when we try to strive for a space where there is no problems that we actually find that there are problems, isn't there?
Yeah, there's no such, I don't believe there is such space, but there's space where every problem is fun,
Yes.
you know, where every problem is about living, which is what I understand it to be these days. Whereas I think previously I was striving for that perfect business and perfect clients versus just understanding that makes me a better, more fulfilled person.
In a show that we've just recently put to air, we looked at the film The Giver, and in that film they talk about an ideal world where basically the upshot of it is everyone's drugged so they don't feel their normal feelings, and so they're all walking around thinking that life's wonderful, but they're not actually experiencing anything. They don't feel love, and they don't see colour.
Oh, that's
because
the
they're so suppressed.
We
you
saw
know?
that one with the young kids, black and
Yes.
white at the start, and then he goes into the cliff.
That's right, exactly. That's the one. Yes,
Brilliant
spot on.
movie.
Very, very brilliant movie, which is why we featured it. But in that's a classic illustration of how if you don't face those difficult things,
Yes.
if you don't face those feelings and emotions, you're just going to get numb and
Yes.
not feel anything. You know?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
And it's interesting. I think if we're looking at the way people think about, that's one way that I don't want to feel those bad feelings. But it's also if there's this sort of rife view in society that if I make everyone else feel good, eventually I'll feel good myself.
Yeah.
And I actually believe the opposite to that these days. Is a wonderful book called The Fountainhead. I'm not sure if you've read
I've
it, but
heard of it,
it's
yeah.
basically flips that idea on its head, and it says if you focus on making yourself feel good to start with, which I know sounds counterintuitive, and most people feel that if they do that they'll become selfish, but actually the opposite is true. If you start focusing on making yourself feel good to a particular level, then pretty quickly you want to then make other people feel good because that makes you feel good, but it's the desire to want to do that because you're so filled up yourself, so
Yes.
you're overflowing with goodness rather than if I look after you, then hopefully you'll look after me and you'll fill me up. Do you know, that's the standard sort of way relationships go. I'm going to be nice to my wife so she's nice to me rather than I need to look after myself for a while. And when I feel really good, and I'm going to ask for permission to do that, and when I feel really good, then I'll naturally want. So it's putting on your oxygen mask first, you know?
No,
And it's much
actually,
it's much cleaner way to give.
Yes.
That-
Oh, and
Yeah.
yeah.
It sits well with me because it sits very much in this idea that I have about what you bring to the table is what you experience. And so if you're coming into a situation being fulfilled, if you like,
Yes.
Yes.
then you're going to inspire that in others as well, you know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the beauty of this is when it comes to leadership, which we work in the leadership space as well, it's very much for anyone from a small business right through to senior corporate executives. You must lead yourself in order to lead others. And there's nothing more inspirational than a person in front of you who is living the life themselves, because then you can follow, and someone who's living their own life actually naturally wants the person behind them to live the best version of themselves. So it's not about I'm working long hours in the corporate or in my own personal small business, so I need to whip you to do the same.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it so it feels good for me, and I'd like you to do it too. And
So it
when you
feels
have
good for
people
you.
doing that, they have natural inspired energy.
Yes.
So they've actually got more to give rather than more hours and less actually to give overall. So that makes sense.
Indeed. Now, that brings us nicely back to the Business Inspire Tribe again. We talked before about working with individuals. Do you work with groups as well?
We do. That's more in the big business space where we do immersion days. So we call it conscious leadership, and it's all the framework that we have sort of on the coaching basis, but doing that in groups so that leaders understand where their logic may be limiting them. So once again, tend to stick in the more logical industries, but a lot of corporate is logical anyway. So by the time you get to big organisations, it's quite logical, and it's bringing that. Once again, the energy of the two of us is Yolande and her expansiveness and my groundedness, and it's merging the two. Because if you look at any of the amazing leaders in our world, and we can see a lot of them these days, they will have more of one, but enough of the other to actually give them that special mix, I guess. Yeah.
And how does that sit with the intuitive side of things? Like when you're doing those types of group presentations, do they jive with the intuitive side of it as well?
Oh, yeah, because it's a chance for us to. I mean, we're building rapport with the group when they're there, so we can intuitively pick. Okay, well, we're going to go in this direction now, or we'll use this person for a demonstration, or so. Yes, absolutely. You know, we have a framework as to what we present with, but anyone that's worked with groups has to be okay. Well, we're moving in this direction now, or we're going, or we're going to spend slightly more time here because that's what the group calls for, and they're all different. So, yeah.
Now, would you call any of your work spiritual at all? It's a deep question.
Look,
yeah, you go first.
From my highly logical days, I'd say it's a lot of feeling based. So there is feeling based work. But my need is to make it more logical. So what's the logic behind the feelings? So people with a logical background ignore feelings, and a lot of the people we start with will say, how do you feel about that? And they'll go, I think. No, I don't care how you think. So it's on the woo-woo scale for someone who's highly logical. If you're highly spiritual, we're probably not that far along the scale. Would you agree with that? Yolande certainly could go that way.
Yeah,
I'm the opposite. So we
Right.
tend to meet.
Yes, I probably play in that space a little bit more, and again, depending on the client. So I've worked with very spiritual clients, so then a lot of my language just becomes that in order to get the best out of that client.
Right.
But there'll be things that we'll talk about as far as, with particular clients, if called for, the universal energy and for what purpose would you choose that? And, it's very self-focused, but for some people to expand themselves out to, okay, well, how am I having an influence on the universe in a general sense? And the choices I'm making, how does that actually affect me as a spiritual being and bringing energy in and bringing energy out? And so some clients we can easily take into that space. And other clients, we just use different language and different examples.
So I certainly do believe in the energy. I don't think we have the science around it yet. But Yolande would perhaps take it more from a spiritual angle on her initial thinking about it, whereas I'd go from the atomic sort of, there's energy going through us all, and we're all one when it comes down to it with regards to the energy levels, etc. So yes, we go a little bit, but not into the...
It depends on the client.
Random.
Because
if it's not scientifically proven, we're unlikely to play there too much. That's realistically where we sit.
Yeah, but our goal with every client is to expand their current thinking. So everyone's thinking is limited, and our job is very much to take their thinking from here to here to here to here, and we just keep expanding it to as much as they need it expanded. So if someone comes in with relatively expansive thinking around a certain topic, we expand that, but then we go to here going, okay, well, now this needs to be expanded if they tell us that that's the part that wants to be expanded, yeah? So for some people that might mean expanding their spiritual idea and spiritual identity and things, so we would take a client there if needed.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
What would be more challenging for you? Someone that was very locked into a logical frame of mind, or someone that was extremely expansive or spiritual, if you like?
Which would be more difficult?
Yeah.
They're very different. So it's the opposite. So if we do have spiritual people coming to us, and it's more giving them logic, that the logic is going to help ground them.
Yes.
Versus the logical person who needs to have their logic broken and be more expansive. So personally, the logical person is easy for me. So if I work with a spiritual person, for me, my curiosity as to how on earth do you think like that is what benefits them, because my lack of understanding helps them to explain what they do think.
Right.
Then I can throw up a different framework, whereas you're probably the opposite.
The opposite.
Right.
So Yolande would have to ask, would show curiosity around a logical person, how they can be so logical. So we come at it from very different angles, which is why we occasionally flip.
And it's probably why you guys work so well together. So like each other's yin and yang. To
We
a
are,
certain
definitely.
degree.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, here's another question based upon the same idea. What would be more challenging, someone that thinks they know quite a bit already or someone that comes in knowing nothing? I know we're generalising.
Yes. No, that's okay. So people that know nothing are easy if they are saying they know nothing. Yes. But our job again is to expand their thinking and challenge the way they think. Now, if someone comes in saying yes, I know everything, well, one of the first things is, okay, well, how much are you implementing? Because awareness is great, and I'll often say to clients, okay, I get that you intellectually understand the concept that we're discussing, but I need to see examples of how you're integrating it.
That, yeah.
So we now need to have a conversation at, well, what specifically are you doing and why aren't you doing this? And so we just break it down from there. So I know I'm not answering your question, but I sort of feel that neither one is really difficult, and it's a sort of similar approach to, well, once you have ownership over what you know or what you don't know, then okay, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And let me challenge you to the point that you are now doing something different.
And if you're looking at who is difficult to coach, the person who doesn't want to change.
Yes.
So there are people who are
Yes.
unhappy being happy. So, do you know, as a coach, well, as a rookie coach, there's the tendency to go, oh, I can help anyone. But I quickly came to realise that actually not everyone wants to be helped. Some people are actually happy being unhappy, and who am I to judge them for the way they choose to go through their life, if that makes sense. So we all judge all the time. And it's okay to judge. It's just not okay to get wrapped up in the judgment and feel the need to change someone else's life, if that makes sense. So
That
I might
makes
look
a
at their
lot of
life and
sense.
go, oh, I don't understand why you would do that. Like there's so much more out there. So someone who comes to coaching wanting to tick that box of we pick them quickly. So we wouldn't take on someone who had this, but there's people who really don't want to be coached. They just want to be justified in their opinion. I can justify you right now. Your opinion is quite okay.
Right off, yeah.
Either you want to shift or not. So it's, are you open to change or not? If you're not open to change, they're impossible to coach.
And we just politely let them go. After a few sessions, we just say, look, you either, if you come to us and invest the time and the money with us, you need to be serious and you need to have complete buy-in into the process.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's okay. We can coach you around your need to hold on to that. That's something different. But if they're just not willing to play at the level that we play at, we just go, look, you've had a couple of sessions maybe.
It's amazing how most people actually take that as like,
They go, oh, right.
Okay. Do you know, like, okay.
They're not going to let me just keep coming each week
no,
and
because
whinge on.
Yeah.
correct. That's not. We see results after every session, and we hold our clients very accountable to their own
That's
success
good.
and their own progression.
So ultimately, the most difficult clients are the ones that are not willing to change, even though they're saying they want to.
Yes.
Spot on. Perfect.
And
Yep.
and the easier ones are those that embrace change at every step.
Yes.
Yes. Who are actively.
Yes.
So the easiest clients are the clients who are in a large degree of pain.
Right.
They're the easiest ones. It's not necessarily pain they've talked about or pain they consciously know about. For example, I used to have tension across the back of my shoulders, like just all the time consistently. Now, it wasn't something that I would have said was pain, but I certainly felt held back by myself.
Yes.
Yeah, so we don't. Yeah, well, we obviously don't just mean physical pain, but sometimes they don't know they're in pain, metaphorical pain. But sometimes we almost need to create the pain for them, so then they go, "Oh my goodness, I am in a lot of pain. Right now, I'm motivated to shift."
And that can be just by highlighting where they could be, and all of a sudden where they are, they go, "Oh, okay, now I understand." So.
Yeah, which comes back to what you were saying before. People often are almost too scared to sort of go, oh, well, I want step 10.
Yeah.
I'm at 1. So once we highlight, well, you can have step 10 or step 20, or what about even if we shoot over there to 100, people are like, oh, okay. And so in that process, that then creates pain. So then they're very motivated to move.
Yeah, and probably the hardest person to coach is the person that doesn't step into coaching. So they come up to the edge, but then they're worried about opening the can of worms. They're so afraid about what they might find out about themselves that they choose not to step forward. And I find that the hardest because people are they're so close. They've sort of admitted that they'd like it, but they can't quite step forward. And there is that feel the fear and do it anyway for the first. Do you know, it's literally 2 sessions in, people go, and
because they experience the freedom in expressing what they want, in dreaming about articulating the dream, or having language around what they didn't think they had language around, and then they do start to feel more comfortable, and then it's a much smoother process.
I really realised that once when we had a client who met one of us at a networking event and discussed things, and I could see they were just really keen but didn't proceed, and I was like, wow, like that surprised me that they didn't proceed. And then basically their other half recommended them to us, so met the other one of us at another event and went, okay, now you've got to go. And that client said to me well into the process, the reason why I didn't come was because I was worried that I'd end up leaving my relationship and I really didn't want to. So people think that
that's interesting,
if
isn't it?
their mindset shifts, they'll end up doing stuff they wouldn't want to do now. The opposite is actually the truth.
Yes.
But they're worried that unconsciously what they think they might need to do will happen without realising that if that does end up being their choice, they'll feel great about it. Or if they really don't want to do it, then they'll work out how to stop having that feeling. So but it's getting all that, we don't necessarily always get that across to people when people miss the mark. So
do you get people to try to jump ahead too quickly too? Like they might be at step 2, but they want to be at step 10, and they're trying to. Oh
yes. So sometimes, but in some areas, it is good to go from 2 to 10, and. I always say, look, sometimes you've almost got to push the boundary this far to go, oh, actually, I've gone a little bit too far. So then you can just naturally find where a good place is to sit before we move you on. So, we sometimes encourage clients to go away between the sessions and, go have this conversation or go do this or go implement that. And sometimes they come back going, oh my goodness, I went kind of too far. I'm like, that's perfect because now you know. But then other times you people will be, at a 2, say, and they sort of go, oh, well, I'll do 3. I'm like, no, let's do 11. Like, come on. So...
Now, you two are both open to learning and constantly in growth, which is exciting. I think it's exciting because I think teachers that are not in growth are a bit scary, to be honest.
Yes.
But, what do you find that you've learnt, both personally and together, since starting Inspire Tribe?
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Hang on, have we got enough time?
Yeah, we're a lifetime away from where we were when we started. What are some of the key?
Well, I would say, a key for me is, so I thought that I was relatively open 3 years ago, but one of the biggest things I've learned is I was only open this much. I would say, oh, yes, I'm open, but now looking back, I wasn't. And the growth that we've gone through personally and professionally, because it's very much woven together in our lives, is just that constant learning of be open, be even more open. So open with each other, open with our clients, just owning ourselves, expressing what it is that we want, being empathetic to our client, taking a client's concerns and then understanding it through being open without the judgment. So all of that would be a huge one for me. And look, we're still a million miles away from, we always want to keep growing. So we're certainly nowhere near the landing point, and I'm sure we'll never ever hit the pinnacle. But
is there a landing point?
Well, that's right. But just open would be the biggest one for me. But.
And for me, it would be you can't see the end. So it's understanding that where I was 3 years ago and what I wished for 3 years ago, I've exceeded that many times over in some regard. So if you think of it like the horizon, and there's a building on the horizon, but then what you don't realise when you get to that building, you'll see another building on the next horizon. Yep. So, and the journey just keeps going. So, and I find that with a lot of clients. A lot of clients, what they set as their benchmark in 6 months' time, like if it was an unbelievable way of being and feeling that you felt in 6 months' time, what would that look like? And many clients articulate something that I feel, oh my goodness, we can get far further than that. But that's as far as I can see at the time.
Yeah,
Does that make
yeah.
sense? So, and when they get there, we actually know, I know that we'll take them further, but also when they get there, there's still further to go. It's just feeling good and self-inspired to continue on that journey. Yeah, so...
Now, if people want to contact you and make use of your wonderful service, how can they best do that?
Well, www.inspiretribe.com.au is our website, and there's a contact form on that.
Yeah.
Or they can email us directly at Nikk@InspireTribe or Yolande@InspireTribe too.
Ladies, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us on Soul to Soul today.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for having us.
It's been our pleasure.
Thank you.